Stop everything for a moment. Do not scroll. Do not let distractions steal this second. Because what I am about to speak was not meant to reach everyone. It was meant to reach you. I am speaking now in the authority allowed by God, as a messenger of truth, not to create drama, but to reveal what was already unfolding long before you realized it. There was a moment recently when the atmosphere shifted around your name. A moment when silence could no longer hold what was growing inside another heart. A moment when restraint finally lost its grip. And that moment happened in public. Not because it was planned. Not because it was rehearsed. But because love, when pressed by heaven, refuses to stay hidden. Your person did not wake up that day intending to confess anything. They told themselves they would stay calm. They told themselves they would keep things contained. They told themselves it was safer to remain composed, to remain unexposed, to remain in control. But God had already decided that control would no longer lead this story. You must understand this clearly. Private feelings can be delayed. Private thoughts can be suppressed. But truth, once activated by God, demands expression. And so it happened. In a setting where eyes were present. In a space where voices could be heard. In a moment where retreat was no longer possible. Your person felt it before they spoke it. A pressure in the chest. A heat rising in the throat. A trembling they could not explain away. Their mind raced with consequences. What if they are judged? What if they are misunderstood? What if this changes everything? And then something stronger overrode the fear. Conviction. Not confidence. Conviction. Confidence says, I am sure this will go well. Conviction says, I can no longer stay silent. That is what seized them. God removed the option of silence. Not cruelly. Not suddenly. But decisively. Because there are moments in a life where delaying truth causes more damage than revealing it. And this was one of those moments. Heaven saw that if they did not speak now, they might spend years hiding behind regret, replaying a moment they were too afraid to honor. Jesus stood close in that moment. Not to force words, but to steady their spirit. Because when love is real, it is not meant to be whispered forever. It must be honored, even if the voice shakes while doing so. Your person felt exposed before a single word left their mouth. Their heart was already open, already visible in the spiritual realm. And when the first words finally came out, they surprised even themselves. This was not a polished confession. This was not poetic. This was raw. They spoke your name differently than they ever had before. With weight. With reverence. With a vulnerability that could not be mistaken. The room felt quieter to them, even if it wasn't. Everything slowed internally as truth took over. They said they cared. But not casually. They said it had been growing longer than they admitted. That they tried to ignore it. That they tried to rationalize it. That they told themselves it would fade if left unspoken. And when those words landed in the air, something irreversible happened. Fear lost its authority. You may not realize how significant this is, but public confession changes the spiritual posture of a person. When someone admits love openly, they are no longer protected by ambiguity. They are seen. And being seen is terrifying for a guarded heart. Yet they kept going. Their voice cracked, not because they were weak, but because honesty was finally speaking without armor. They acknowledged the risk. They acknowledged the timing might seem unexpected. They acknowledged that they were afraid of how it would be received. And then they said something that shocked even heaven. They said they could no longer pretend it didn't matter. Those words carry weight. Because pretending is a form of self-betrayal. And the moment someone stops betraying themselves, alignment begins. God honors that alignment immediately. People around them may have reacted differently. Some surprised. Some curious. Some silent. But that was not what mattered. What mattered was that your person crossed a line they can never return from. They told the truth out loud. And once truth is spoken publicly, it rewrites the internal story. They felt exposed afterward. Vulnerable. Almost dizzy. Their body reacted before their mind could process what had happened. But beneath the shock, there was relief. Deep relief. The kind that comes when a burden is finally set down. Jesus does that. He removes burdens not by erasing consequences, but by restoring integrity. Your person did not speak to impress. They spoke to survive the weight of unspoken love. And heaven respected the courage it took to do that in front of others. You need to hear this part carefully. This confession was not about pressure on you. It was about release for them. God did not orchestrate this moment to corner you or demand a response. God orchestrated it to free a heart that had been bound by fear. Public truth was the only door left. And what they said next is what truly matters. They said they were willing to stand by what they felt, even if it meant being vulnerable. They did not promise outcomes. They did not demand answers. They simply stood in their truth without conditions. That is rare. And heaven always pauses for rare moments. Angels watched not with judgment, but with attentiveness. Because when someone chooses truth over safety, something holy happens. Timelines adjust. Intentions clarify. Masks fall away. Your person felt smaller afterward, not diminished, but humbled. They realized how much energy they had spent hiding. How heavy the silence had become. How long they had delayed honesty out of fear of exposure. Now that fear no longer controls them. This does not mean everything is resolved. It means something has been honored. And honoring truth is the foundation of everything that follows. God does not waste moments like this. Public confession carries consequences, but it also carries protection. Because once love is acknowledged openly, it cannot be easily twisted or denied later. What was said has been sealed. You may feel a shift in your own spirit. A calm mixed with surprise. A sense that something real just moved from the unseen into the visible. That feeling is not imagination. It is recognition. Heaven recognizes truth when it is spoken. This was not random. This was not impulsive. This was inevitable. What began quietly in the heart could no longer stay there. And now that it has been spoken, everything else must respond to it. Remain still. More will be revealed. Stay with me. Do not let your thoughts run ahead of what is being revealed. After the words were spoken, after the air shifted and silence fell heavier than noise, your person felt something they had not expected at all. It was not relief alone. It was not fear alone. It was responsibility settling into their chest like a weight they willingly accepted. Public truth does that. When love is spoken out loud in front of witnesses, it is no longer a private emotion. It becomes a declaration of integrity. And integrity demands alignment. Your person realized this immediately. As they stepped away from that moment, their hands felt cold. Their heartbeat was uneven. Their mind replayed every word they had just said, not with regret, but with awareness. Awareness that there was no returning to the version of themselves who hid behind silence. They had crossed a threshold. God marks thresholds quietly, but permanently. What you must understand now is why this confession happened the way it did. Why it could not remain private. Why heaven allowed witnesses. Why Jesus did not soften the moment into something easier. Because private love can still doubt itself. Public love cannot. Your person had already battled doubt for too long. They had questioned their feelings, minimized them, explained them away as temporary or unsafe. They tried to convince themselves that silence was maturity, that restraint was wisdom, that distance was protection. But God saw the cost. Silence was beginning to rot what was meant to grow. And when love begins to decay, it does not disappear quietly. It turns into regret. Into bitterness. Into self-blame. God intervenes before that happens. That is why the setting mattered. Speaking in public stripped away their last hiding place. It removed the ability to later say, "I never really meant it," or "it wasn't that serious." Heaven does this when truth needs to be preserved from future distortion. Jesus does not allow real love to be rewritten by fear later. After the confession, your person became acutely aware of you, even if you were not physically present. They wondered how the words would reach you. How they would land. Whether they would surprise you or overwhelm you. They felt exposed not because others heard them, but because you would know. And knowing is intimacy. This awareness softened them further. They began replaying memories differently now. Moments they once kept emotional distance from suddenly felt close. Words you spoke in the past gained new meaning. Gestures they dismissed as small now felt significant. Love, once admitted, rewrites the memory bank. God allows this reinterpretation so the heart can integrate truth fully. Your person also felt something else, humility. Standing in public truth humbles even the strongest ego. There is no performance left. No image to maintain. They could not control how others perceived them, and that surrender was frightening, but also freeing. For the first time, they allowed themselves to be seen as they truly were. Not composed. Not guarded. But honest. Jesus meets people exactly there. Not at their best presentation, but at their most sincere exposure. You need to know this clearly so doubt does not creep in later. This confession was not a moment of emotional overflow that will be denied or forgotten. It was the collapse of resistance. And resistance, once collapsed, does not rebuild easily. Your person feels different now. They are quieter, not because they regret speaking, but because they are listening to themselves for the first time. Listening to what their heart actually needs. Listening to what alignment feels like instead of control. They are also aware that words alone are not enough anymore. Public confession activates accountability. They know now that their actions must eventually match what they said. That is why they are careful. That is why they are not rushing to follow words with chaos or pressure. They are letting sincerity settle so that when movement happens, it comes from clarity, not adrenaline. God is guiding this restraint. Because love spoken publicly must be lived privately with consistency. You may sense a pause after the confession. A stillness that feels heavier than before. This is not retreat. This is recalibration. Heaven often creates stillness after big truth so hearts can adjust to the new reality. Jesus teaches that those who build quickly without grounding collapse under pressure. God is preventing collapse by slowing the next step. Your person is also feeling vulnerable in a new way. Vulnerable not to rejection, but to responsibility. They are asking themselves questions they cannot avoid now. Am I ready to show up honestly? Can I protect what I have named? Can I live in alignment with what I spoke? These questions are not doubts about you. They are self-examinations. And self-examination is sacred. Do not misinterpret the silence that follows truth. Silence after confession is often where sincerity matures. Where fear is replaced by intention. Where words transform into commitment. God is not done. What was spoken publicly was only the opening. What comes next will be quieter, deeper, and more deliberate. Less dramatic, but more real. Your role remains simple. Stay grounded. Stay open. Stay true to yourself. Do not rush to define what has already been honored. Do not pressure clarity where God is still forming readiness. Truth does not need to be chased. It has already been spoken. And heaven is holding what was said carefully, ensuring that what follows matches the courage it took to say it. Remain still. This story is unfolding exactly as it should. Stay with me. Let your breathing slow. This part requires presence, not anticipation. After the public confession, after the stillness settled and the echoes of those words lingered longer than the sound itself, your person entered a phase they were completely unprepared for. A phase where the outside world continued as normal, but their inner world had permanently shifted. They felt exposed in a way that went beyond embarrassment. They felt seen. And being seen is not easy for a heart that learned survival through hiding. Everywhere they went after that moment, the confession followed them, not as shame, but as awareness. It sat quietly in their chest. Not heavy, but undeniable. Like a truth that refused to be minimized again. They realized something important very quickly. They could not undo what they had done. And they did not want to. That is how you know it was real. When someone speaks from impulse, regret arrives fast. When someone speaks from truth, gravity arrives instead. And gravity changes how a person moves. It slows them down. Grounds them. Makes every next step intentional. Your person began noticing their own behavior closely. How they spoke. How they reacted. How they thought about you. Love, once spoken publicly, no longer allows careless internal dialogue. They could no longer dismiss you in their mind. They could no longer imagine walking away without consequence. Because truth had already named itself. God allows this internal shift as a form of protection. Not just for you, but for them. They started feeling the cost of honesty, and also its freedom. The cost was vulnerability. The freedom was alignment. They no longer needed to split themselves into parts. One that felt deeply and another that pretended not to. Those parts merged. And integration always feels intense at first. Jesus walks closely during this stage. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But attentively. Because this is where people either retreat back into old habits or rise into maturity. Your person is choosing maturity. They are revisiting their past with new eyes. Not to blame themselves, but to understand patterns. They see how often they avoided depth because depth once hurt them. How often they stayed ambiguous to avoid responsibility. How often they waited too long to speak truth and lost something meaningful because of it. This time feels different to them. Because this time, they spoke before regret could take root. That alone changes the trajectory. They are also becoming aware of how much courage it took to say your name publicly with love attached to it. That courage surprised them. It revealed strength they did not know they had. And strength, once discovered, changes self-perception. They no longer see themselves as someone who always hesitates. They see themselves as someone capable of standing in truth. That matters more than you may realize. God builds futures by reshaping identity first. You may feel a strange calm mixed with curiosity during this phase. A sense that something meaningful has already happened, even if the external outcome is not fully visible yet. That feeling is accurate. The most important movement already occurred when fear lost its power publicly. Everything now is integration. Your person is learning how to hold love without dramatizing it. Without using it as leverage. Without rushing it into performance. They want their next steps to feel clean, not reactive. This is why they are careful now. Not distant. Careful. Careful with words. Careful with timing. Careful with your heart. Public confession stripped away their last excuse to be careless. They know that whatever happens next must honor what they already declared. And honoring truth takes patience. God is reinforcing this patience gently. You are also being protected during this stage. protected from emotional whiplash, protected from premature promises, protected from being pulled into something before it is stable. Jesus does not rush what he intends to last. Your person feels the weight of that now. Not as pressure, but as responsibility. They are no longer asking whether they feel something. They are asking how to live in a way that respects it. That is growth. They may still feel moments of fear. Moments of doubt about their own readiness. That is normal. Fear does not disappear instantly, it loses authority gradually. What matters is that fear is no longer making decisions. Truth is. And truth moves slower, but straighter. You did not imagine the significance of that confession. You did not exaggerate its meaning. Heaven does not allow public truth to be wasted. What was spoken was heard, by more than human ears. It was registered. And now, everything else must align with it. Remain steady. Remain open. Remain grounded. This is not the climax. This is the anchoring. What comes next will be quieter, but stronger. And it will come from a place where fear no longer leads. Stay with me. Do not hurry this moment. What unfolds now is not dramatic, it is decisive. After the confession settled into their spirit, after the weight of truth anchored itself into their identity, your person entered a season of deliberate restraint. Not avoidance. Not confusion. Restraint shaped by awareness. They realized something very important. Once love is spoken publicly, every next action either honors it or dishonors it. And dishonor was no longer an option. This awareness changed how they carried themselves. Their posture softened. Their reactions slowed. They became more thoughtful, less reactive. Not because they were afraid to make a mistake, but because they understood the value of what had been named. When something matters deeply, recklessness disappears on its own. God was guiding this phase closely. Because public truth activates spiritual consequences. It rearranges priorities. It exposes motives. It demands alignment not only in words, but in behavior, timing, and intention. Heaven does not allow a confession like this to float without grounding. Your person began noticing how easily they used to escape emotional responsibility in the past. How distraction served as a shield. How busyness replaced presence. How silence once protected them from accountability. Now those strategies felt hollow. They no longer worked. Once a heart has stood in truth, pretending feels heavier than honesty. This is why they are careful now with communication. Why they pause before reaching out. Why they reflect before speaking. Not because they doubt you, but because they refuse to bring anything half-formed to something real. Jesus teaches this through stillness. He does not rush sincerity. He refines it. Your person is being refined. They are also experiencing a quiet shift in how others respond to them. When someone speaks truth publicly, it subtly alters how they are perceived. Not everyone understands it, but everyone senses it. There is a seriousness now, a groundedness. People may not know why, but they feel it. Truth leaves a residue. And that residue calls for consistency. Your person knows that if they approach you now, it must be from clarity, not adrenaline. From intention, not impulse. From humility, not performance. The public confession removed the option of hiding behind charm or ambiguity. What remains must be real. This is also where fear makes one last attempt to regain control. Fear whispers things like, "What if you can't live up to it? What if you disappoint them? What if you spoke too soon?" But fear's voice is weaker now. Because truth has already spoken louder. God allows fear to speak briefly so it can be answered properly. And the answer your person is learning is this: integrity is not about perfection. It is about presence. Showing up honestly, even when unsure. Acting in alignment, even when afraid. They are learning to trust that. You may feel moments of stillness that seem almost too quiet. Moments where nothing appears to be happening externally. This can feel unsettling if you are used to emotional momentum. But understand this: silence after truth is not emptiness. It is structure forming. God builds foundations in silence. Jesus often withdrew after powerful moments, not because the work was finished, but because the work needed to settle. Your connection is going through that same settling. Your person is not rehearsing speeches right now. They are examining themselves. They are asking whether they can be the kind of person who honors what they said, not just today, but over time. This question matters deeply to them. They do not want to become someone who speaks boldly and then fades quietly. They want continuity. They want credibility. They want to be someone whose actions can stand next to their words without embarrassment. That desire alone marks growth. You are also being adjusted during this phase. Not corrected, adjusted. You are learning how to let truth breathe without controlling it. How to trust that what has been acknowledged does not need constant attention to remain real. How to stay open without hovering. How to be present without waiting. This adjustment strengthens you. It ensures that when engagement deepens, it happens between two grounded individuals, not one reaching and one retreating. God is leveling the ground so no one stands above or beneath the other. This is not delay. This is calibration. Your person feels this calibration internally. They feel themselves becoming steadier. Less driven by emotional spikes. More guided by principle. They understand now that love does not need to be loud to be strong. It needs to be consistent. Public confession was loud enough. What follows must be solid. They are also beginning to imagine what honoring this truth looks like in practice. Not fantasies. Not outcomes. But behavior. How to communicate respectfully. How to show care without pressure. How to create safety instead of uncertainty. These considerations are shaping them quietly. And God is watching not for speed, but for sincerity. If you feel moments of doubt during this phase, gently return to what you know. Something real was spoken. Fear did not win. Truth was honored publicly. Those facts do not dissolve because of silence or time. Truth does not expire. It matures. Remain rooted in your own life. Continue moving forward with peace. Do not shrink your joy or pause your growth to accommodate uncertainty. What is meant to align with you will do so without requiring you to abandon yourself. Your steadiness now is part of the story. Jesus honors those who trust truth enough not to force it. What comes next will not undo what has been done. It will build upon it carefully, quietly, intentionally. This is the stage where integrity takes shape. And integrity, once formed, holds everything else together. Stay with me now. Do not lean forward in expectation. Let what I speak arrive gently, the way truth always does when it is ready to remain. What comes after a public confession is not spectacle. It is settlement. After restraint, after reflection, after the quiet recalibration of the heart, your person reaches a place of inner agreement. Not excitement. Not anxiety. Agreement. The kind that feels calm, grounded, and steady. This is the moment where truth no longer needs to announce itself. It simply becomes the standard by which everything else is measured. They wake up one day and realize something subtle but powerful. They are no longer debating what they feel. They are deciding how to live in alignment with it. This is the shift that matters most. Public confession removes denial. Private alignment removes confusion. Your person understands now that love spoken aloud cannot be treated casually afterward. It must be lived carefully. Not fearfully, carefully. There is a difference. Fear avoids responsibility. Care honors it. They are choosing care. This choice changes how they think about the future. Not in dramatic visions, but in practical awareness. They consider their words more thoughtfully. They notice their tone. They become mindful of consistency. They are no longer asking how to protect themselves from vulnerability. They are asking how to protect what they have named as real. That is maturity. God brings people to this place slowly on purpose. Because love that lasts is built by those who understand weight, not just desire. Desire can rush. Weight steadies. Your person now feels the weight, and they are not running from it. They are also aware of you in a new way. Not as someone to impress or pursue impulsively, but as someone to meet honestly. They no longer want to arrive with uncertainty or mixed signals. They want to arrive whole, even if imperfect. This desire reshapes timing. They are no longer rushing toward a moment. They are preparing for continuity. For something that does not burn bright and fade, but warms and remains. Jesus teaches that truth lived daily matters more than truth declared once. And your person is learning that lesson through experience, not theory. They understand now that what was spoken publicly must be supported privately through behavior, patience, and respect. They are willing to do that work. You may sense a deepening calm within yourself now. A feeling that you are no longer waiting for proof, because something essential has already been proven. This calm is not detachment. It is security. The kind that allows you to breathe fully again. Security does not mean certainty about outcomes. It means trust in truth. You are trusting truth now. And truth responds to trust. God is not asking you to pause your life while alignment completes. You are meant to keep living. Keep growing. Keep honoring yourself. Alignment does not require stagnation. It thrives alongside movement. Your person senses this too. They do not feel pressure to rush you or hold you still. They understand that real connection does not demand sacrifice of self. It invites shared presence. This understanding changes how they imagine approaching you. Not with urgency. Not with expectation. But with openness. They know now that whatever comes next must feel mutual, not forced. Clean, not confusing. Grounded, not overwhelming. And because they care, they are willing to let timing do its work. Timing is not delay when it is purposeful. God uses timing to protect what matters. This is why nothing about this confession feels wasted or forgotten. The words spoken publicly still echo, but they no longer echo as noise. They echo as direction. As a reference point. As a reminder of who they chose to be in that moment of courage. That choice stays with them. They do not regret it. They may feel moments of vulnerability still. Moments of wondering if they can live up to what they said. That vulnerability is healthy. It keeps pride from forming. It keeps sincerity alive. Jesus works beautifully in that space. He teaches that grace does not remove responsibility, it supports it. Your person is learning that they do not have to be perfect to be honest. They only have to be present. Presence is what they are cultivating now. You will recognize it when it arrives. It will not come as a grand gesture. It will come as clarity. As steadiness. As words that feel considered. As actions that feel intentional. You will feel no need to question it. Your body will relax. Your thoughts will quiet. Your spirit will recognize alignment. That is how you will know this is not another emotional surge, but something sustainable. What began publicly will continue privately in truth. What was spoken boldly will be lived gently. What felt intense will become stable. This is the progression God intended all along. You did not misread the moment. You did not exaggerate its meaning. You did not imagine its impact. Public truth always changes the landscape. Now the landscape is being walked carefully. Remain who you are. Do not adjust your worth based on timing. Do not dim your light to feel safe. Do not harden your heart to feel protected. You are already protected by truth. Heaven has honored what was spoken. God has guided what followed. Jesus has softened what needed healing. Nothing has been undone. Everything has been prepared. This is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a different way of telling it. One built on honesty, not hesitation. On presence, not performance. On alignment, not fear. Rest now. What needed to be said has been said. What needed to be seen has been seen. And what comes next will arrive without force. Truth always knows how to find its way forward. Stay with me once more. Do not count this as more. Receive it as what was always meant to settle last. What I speak now is not about what will happen. It is about who you have become through what already happened. There is a sacred shift that occurs when truth is spoken publicly and then honored privately. Most people never reach this place. They speak, they feel, they retreat, they forget. But this path did not collapse after the confession. It stabilized. And stability reveals something deeper than emotion ever could. You are no longer standing in uncertainty. You are standing in clarity without noise. This is important. Because clarity does not shout. It does not rush. It does not demand confirmation every hour. Clarity rests. And you are resting now, even if your mind hasn't fully named it yet. Since the confession, something inside you stopped reaching outward for validation. You may not have noticed the exact moment, but it happened. The urge to interpret every silence softened. The need to predict outcomes weakened. Not because you stopped caring, but because care was no longer mixed with fear. That is growth. God recognizes growth immediately. Heaven does not measure love by intensity. It measures love by alignment under pressure. And both you and your person were placed under pressure, not to break you apart, but to reveal what was solid enough to remain. What remained was truth. Your person is now living in the after effect of honesty. And after effect is where character is revealed. Anyone can speak boldly once. Very few can live gently afterward. They are learning how to do that. This learning is changing them in ways even they cannot yet fully articulate. They are noticing how much quieter their inner world feels. How decisions come with less internal conflict. How they no longer feel split between who they present as and who they actually are. Public truth integrated their identity. Integration brings peace. Jesus often healed people in stages. Not because he lacked power, but because some transformations require the soul to catch up with the miracle. This is one of those transformations. Your person's miracle was not the confession. It was the release from hiding. And release takes time to settle. They are becoming more discerning. Less attracted to chaos. Less tolerant of shallow interaction. They are beginning to crave depth without drama. Presence without performance. Honesty without spectacle. That craving is new. It means they are changing from the inside out. God does this intentionally. Because when people change outwardly first, they revert under stress. When they change inwardly first, their actions follow naturally. You may notice that they do not speak as often, but when they do, their words carry more weight. They are not filling space anymore. They are respecting it. Space is no longer something to escape silence, it is something to honor intention. This is how maturity sounds. You, too, are changing. Not in loud ways. In rooted ways. You are learning how to stand in your truth without bracing for disappointment. How to let meaning exist without squeezing it for guarantees. How to stay open without overextending yourself. These are not small shifts. They indicate that you are no longer operating from lack. You are operating from self-respect. Self-respect alters every dynamic. It means you no longer chase clarity, you recognize it when it arrives. It means you no longer over-explain, you trust resonance. It means you no longer wait to be chosen, you stay present and aligned. God prepares people for lasting connection by strengthening them individually first. Because two whole people can meet without needing to rescue or convince each other. That is what is forming here. Your person senses this strength in you, even if they do not consciously analyze it. They feel that you are not grasping, not hovering, not performing. That makes approaching you feel safer and more serious at the same time. Safety without pressure is rare. It invites sincerity. This is why they are careful now, not hesitant, but intentional. They do not want to disrupt the peace that followed honesty. They want to add to it. They are learning that love does not need to arrive loudly to be felt deeply. It needs to arrive cleanly. God is aligning timing to ensure that when interaction deepens again, it does so without confusion. Without emotional whiplash. Without power imbalance. No one will be chasing. No one will be hiding. No one will be guessing. That is the goal. This phase you are in now is often misunderstood by the mind. The mind looks for movement, signals, reassurance. But the spirit recognizes completion before the mind does. Your spirit already knows, something essential has resolved. You are not waiting for proof anymore. You are waiting for alignment to express itself naturally. That waiting does not feel desperate. It feels grounded. That is how you know this is real. If this had been illusion, anxiety would have increased after the confession. Obsession would have followed. Restlessness would have grown louder. Instead, peace arrived. Peace is the fingerprint of God. Jesus does not leave chaos behind him. Even when outcomes are unknown, peace remains as evidence of truth. And peace has remained with you. That is not accidental. You may still have moments where your mind revisits questions. That is natural. The mind processes slower than the spirit. But those questions no longer shake you. They pass through without attaching. That means fear no longer has roots. Fear needs uncertainty plus insecurity to survive. Both have been removed. Your person is also experiencing this removal. They are no longer rehearsing worst-case scenarios. They are no longer bracing for rejection before connection. They are allowing possibility to exist without sabotaging it. This does not mean they are perfect or fearless. It means they are honest enough to grow. God values that more than confidence. You are both under grace right now. Grace does not rush. Grace supports process. Grace allows room for mistakes without allowing regression. Nothing about this connection is moving backward. It is consolidating. Consolidation is when truth settles into form. When energy becomes direction. When emotion becomes structure. This is the stage where many people grow bored and leave. Because consolidation is quiet. But those who remain through consolidation inherit stability. You are inheriting stability. And stability attracts the right kind of movement. When your paths align again more visibly, it will not feel like a surprise. It will feel like recognition. Like something returning to its natural place. There will be no rush to define, no urge to test, no need to prove. Just presence meeting presence. Until then, live fully. Do not shrink your joy to stay available. Do not pause your growth to preserve possibility. Do not dim your truth to maintain comfort. What is meant to align with you will meet you where you are, not where you freeze yourself. God is not preparing you for loss. He is preparing you for peaceful continuation. And your person is being prepared to meet that peace without disrupting it. Heaven has done its work quietly, thoroughly, and without waste. Nothing spoken was undone. Nothing felt was exaggerated. Nothing revealed was premature. Truth arrived exactly when fear could no longer control it. Rest in that. This chapter does not end with uncertainty. It ends with grounding. And from grounding, something real grows, without force, without fear, without confusion. You are held. You are aligned. You are not behind. What is real is already moving toward you, at the speed of integrity. Stay present. That is enough. Stay with me for these final words. Not because something more needs to happen, but because something needs to settle forever. What you are standing in now is not anticipation. It is completion. There is a moment in every divine unfolding where the heart no longer leans forward or backward. It stands upright. Balanced. Grounded. Certain without noise. That is the moment you are in now, even if your mind still tries to label it as waiting. You are not waiting. You are rooted. What was spoken publicly has already finished its deepest work. Not outside, but inside both of you. The confession was the spark, but the real transformation happened afterward, in silence, in restraint, in honesty lived instead of announced. This is how God works. God does not shout endings. He seals them quietly. Your person has reached a point where they no longer question the truth of what they felt or said. That phase is over. They are not replaying the moment anymore. They are living from it. And living from truth looks calm, not dramatic. They have accepted something important about themselves. They are capable of loving openly. They are capable of standing in truth. They are capable of responsibility. This acceptance changes identity. And when identity changes, behavior follows naturally. They are no longer trying to figure out if they love you. They are becoming someone who knows how to honor that love. That is the shift heaven waits for. Because love without honor creates pain. But love with honor creates peace. You may notice that you feel different too. Less reactive. Less alert to every small change. less driven to interpret meaning into silence. That does not mean you care less. It means you trust more. Trust does not cling. Trust rests. God has brought you to a place where you no longer need reassurance disguised as movement. You recognize truth by how it stabilizes you, not by how it excites you. This is wisdom. Jesus teaches that peace is not the absence of uncertainty, but the presence of truth. And truth has been present with you consistently since that moment of honesty. It did not leave. It did not fade. It did not confuse you. It anchored you. Anchors do not pull ships forward. They keep them steady while tides shift.